One day, my company held an anniversary party. The venue was already bustling with many employees chatting noisily. There were about 30 minutes until the party started, so I sat down on a nearby chair to wait. Then, James approached me. "Hey, you actually showed up. By the way, where's your wife? She's running late because of work." James always pestered me, and honestly, it was getting on my nerves. "Why so cold? Does she have some secret job you can't tell anyone about? Come on, show us the wife who matches your dull looks." I was at my limit after he insulted my beloved wife. Right then, someone appeared, throwing the venue into a state of panic. And James, who had been insulting me, started down a path of misfortune. "My name is John. I'm 26 years old. After graduating from college, I started working at a trading company. Another person from the same college joined the same company, and his name is James. We joined as peers, but I was shocked by the difference in how we were treated. You see, James is what you'd call a handsome guy. Even I, as a man, had to admit he had model-like good looks and a great build. He's about 6 feet 2 inches tall. James had been popular since college, and that didn't change after joining the company. He was always surrounded by female employees and often had lunch with them. I'm the complete opposite of James. I've been mocked for my looks since I was a kid and have no confidence in myself. So, I've always tried to avoid drawing attention. But James always found a way to pick on me. This had been going on since college when he once humiliated me. It was during the annual Mr. University contest at our university. Known as the Mr. Contest. Our university's Mr. Contest was a big deal, getting a lot of attention on social media. Of course, James entered, but the problem was that someone entered me too. I would never enter myself and had no memory of doing so. Someone must have done it for a laugh. I figured everyone would lose interest eventually, and since I'd get eliminated in the preliminaries, I decided to endure it for a bit. But I made it to the finals. It was obviously rigged. Someone must have tampered with the votes. I tried to withdraw, but since it had been publicized on social media, dropping out midway wasn't allowed. So, I was forced to stand on stage. The person standing next to me in the finals was James. In the final round, the audience votes, and I could hear snickers from the crowd. Of course, there was a huge difference between James and me. As expected, James won. I didn't get a single vote. Later, I found out that it was James who had entered me into the contest and rigged the votes. After the Mr. Contest ended, we were nearing the end of our college life, so I tried to focus on getting through it without worrying too much. Yet, I ended up working at the same company as James. When I found out we were at the same company, I was utterly disheartened. I thought it would be just like college all over again. However, after we started working, James was always busy with female employees fawning over him, leaving him little time to harass me. Even so, he occasionally made snide remarks to me. For instance, when we passed by each other, he would say, "Man, you look ugly today. Did you even check the mirror before coming in? I couldn't step out looking like that." You know, as a salesman, appearance matters. You should take a leaf out of my book and spruce up a bit. Sure, looks matter in sales. But I believe it's more about expressions than facial features. And above all, in sales, building trust with the client is crucial. I always prioritize trust, so my sales performance was fairly high. James, on the other hand, was the top performer. This was because he mostly dealt with companies led by women. James had a knack for charming women, securing deals just by engaging in a bit of personal talk. Many men didn't think highly of him, but no one could complain about his top sales record. Around 2 years after joining the company, a company-wide drinking party was organized. We were seated in close groups based on age. So I ended up sitting opposite James. Since we had a 3-day weekend coming up, everyone seemed to be drinking at a high pace. James was already drunk by the time he started picking on me again. "So, I hear you're married." "Yeah, so what? But you didn't invite anyone from work to the wedding, did you? Isn't that strange?" "Not really. More people are having small, family-only ceremonies these days. You didn't invite anyone because you're too embarrassed to show your wife, right?" "That's not it at all. As I tried to explain, James burst into a crude laugh. Nobody wants to see your wife anyway. I felt drained, unable to muster a response to James's offensive laughter and remarks. Then, perhaps thinking I was angry, James started saying things like this. Don't be mad. We were Mr. Contest buddies, remember? Colleagues around us reacted to his statement. Mr. Contest? Yeah, it's a contest held at our university every year to pick the best-looking guy. And both James and John competed in it? One colleague inquired with a puzzled look. Yep. It's hilarious that this guy entered the Mr. Contest. And we went head-to-head in the finals. Of course, all the votes went to me. And he got 0. At that moment, I truly hated James. Our colleagues looked uncertain how to respond and quickly changed the subject. The rest of the drinking party was hellish for me. After the Mr. Contest topic came up, I didn't speak to anyone, drinking alone in a corner. Honestly, I started thinking about changing jobs. But the reason I've been able to endure at this company is because of my wife. I'm home. I was heavily intoxicated from all the stress drinking and stumbled into the house completely drunk. My wife, Emma, welcomed me home with a smile. Welcome back. How was the drinking party today? It was awful. I never want to attend another one. Was it because of James again? Yeah. He always picks on me. I don't know why. You're good at your job, so maybe he's jealous deep down. I hope that's it, but he embarrassed me in front of everyone. That must have been tough. Let's just go to bed early and do something fun tomorrow to take your mind off it. Yeah, maybe we should go on a day trip. Sounds great. I have the day off tomorrow, so we can have fun from morning till night. Emma's smile saves me. I used to be gloomy and negative, but since meeting Emma, I've become a bit more positive. Emma is a very cheerful woman, always full of energy. Just seeing her makes me feel better. She's more than I deserve, balancing both work and household chores. Whenever I come home, there's always a warm meal waiting in Emma's smiling face. No matter how bad my day at work is, I recharge when I get home. The only thing Emma isn't good at is ironing. I've asked her to iron my shirts a few times, but she ended up burning them or putting holes in them, so I handle the ironing. Emma felt bad about it, saying, I'm sorry. I ruined your work shirts. I thought a good wife should be able to iron properly. But I can't do it at all. But in a marriage, you cover each other's weaknesses. So I didn't mind at all. Besides, ironing isn't a big deal. For someone like me who isn't good at cooking or cleaning, having Emma around is a blessing. I fell asleep feeling grateful for Emma. The next day, we went on a day trip to a hot spring. We enjoyed good food, relaxed in the hot spring, and felt ready to tackle work again. After a refreshing 3-day weekend, I was informed about the company's anniversary party. We'd had opportunities to hold the anniversary party before, but due to various issues like the pandemic and our president's health, this was the first actual event. Honestly, I didn't want to attend. The anniversary party has a tradition of bringing spouses. It's not mandatory, but most people bring their spouses or children. Since I'm married, my boss told me to bring my wife. I didn't want to take Emma, mainly because I didn't want her to meet James. You're not going to leave your wife at home, are you? She's busy with work, so I don't know if she can make it. Sure, just say she's busy so you don't have to bring her. I lost my temper at James's remark. Fine, I'll bring her. Wow, scary. I'm looking forward to it then. I bet your wife is just like you. That night, I told Emma about the anniversary party. I can make it that day. I might be a bit late because of work, though. That's totally fine. I'm sorry to drag you into this. Don't worry about it. I've been curious. About what? That James guy. I've wanted to meet him, so this is a good opportunity. You want to meet James? Why? Because he's someone who speaks badly about my beloved husband. I'm curious to see what kind of person he is. He's the top salesperson, so no one can say anything against him, no matter the reason. Well, I'm looking forward to the anniversary party. I'll dress up for it. Emma said this cheerfully. On the day of the anniversary party, I headed to the venue alone. The venue was already bustling with many employees chatting noisily. There were about 30 minutes until the party started, so I sat down on a nearby chair to wait. Then, James approached me. "Hey, you actually showed up. So, where's your wife?" "She's running late because of work." "What kind of job does your wife do?" "That's none of your business." "Why so cold? Is it some kind of job you can't talk about? And don't you feel embarrassed making your wife work?" Even though working couples are increasing, I could never let my wife work. My ideal is for her to take care of the home while I earn the money. Everyone has their own way of managing their household. Are you mad? I'm not mad, but I don't appreciate you talking badly about my wife. Whatever. But it's your wife, man. I bet nobody will know what to say when they meet her. Anyway, let me know when she arrives. With that, James moved on to talk to someone else. As we talked, the time for the anniversary party to start arrived. The party began with a speech from President Brown, and then everyone started enjoying the food and drinks. After a while, my phone rang. "Hey, what's up?" "Sorry, I should have been there by now, but work ran late. I just finished." "Don't worry at all. Take it easy. The party just started, so no rush." "Thanks. I just got in a cab, but there's some traffic, so I might be about an hour late." "Got it. I'll let the reception know. Text me when you get here." "Okay." Emma hung up. Just then, James approached me again. "Your wife is really late, isn't she? Are you sure you even invited her?" "She's on her way. She just called. We'll see. By the way, my girlfriend is here. Let me introduce you." James said this, and a woman appeared behind him. She had a cute face, but also a strong presence. "Nice to meet you. Pleased to make your acquaintance." "Nice to meet you. Isn't she great?" "She's a model. She's been featured in some big magazines. She's so cute that everyone does a double take. Her fashion sense is top-notch too. Look, this outfit is from that brand. Don't flatter me too much, I'll get shy." "But it's true, isn't it?" "Well, yes, but still." I wondered what I was being forced to witness. She might be a cute woman, but she wasn't attractive to me at all. So, I was at a loss when James sought my agreement. "Don't you think so?" "Oh, sorry, I wasn't listening. What were you talking about?" "Come on, man. I'm talking about how my girlfriend is super cute." "Ah, yeah, sure. Don't fall for her. Not that she'd ever be interested in you." As we talked, there was a commotion near the entrance. "What's going on over there?" While everyone was focused on the noise, I noticed a missed call on my phone. I had missed Emma's call because I was distracted by James and his girlfriend, Emily. She had sent a message saying she had arrived and was coming into the venue. I decided to go meet Emma at the entrance. As I made my way there, I overheard nearby employees talking. "Hey, isn't that the actress everyone's been talking about?" "No way, but she does look familiar. Remember, we were supposed to have a surprise guest today?" "That must be her. What's her name again? Wasn't it Emma?" "That's right. Her skin looks amazing in real life. Even in a simple dress, she has such an aura, definitely not like an average person." As I listened to their conversation, Emma spotted me and walked over. "Sorry I'm so late. I really wanted to get here earlier to enjoy the party." "It's fine. You're in the middle of shooting a new movie, right? Thanks for coming even though you have a busy schedule." "No problem. I love parties, so I was really happy when you invited me." As Emma and I talked, the surrounding chatter grew louder. "What's her relationship with that guy? They look pretty close, don't they?" Being the center of attention made me uncomfortable, and I wasn't sure how to handle it. Then James, dragging Emily along, approached us. "Hey, what's going on here?" "Explain." I hesitated under the intense scrutiny, but Emma gave me a reassuring smile and nod. "This is my wife," I announced. Everyone in the room reacted with surprise. What? Are you kidding? I'm not joking. There's no way you married someone that beautiful. After a moment of silence, Emma spoke up. Nice to meet you. I'm Emma, an actress. You must be James? James, not expecting Emma to speak to him, stammered. The actress Emma? That's right. And, what's your relationship with him? As my husband just said, we are married. Actually, my wife is a very popular actress. She only became famous after we got married. Before that, she was a struggling actress playing minor roles. We met by chance at a bar where we both went alone. I saw her there a few times, and we eventually started talking. Back then, she was unknown, and I didn't know her, so I listened to her frustrations about acting. We gradually fell for each other and got married. Emma used to be chubby and unremarkable, but over the years, she worked hard to maintain her current figure. Having seen her efforts up close, I've always been proud of her. So, I couldn't stand James looking down on her. Sorry for causing a scene. Maybe we should leave. Yes, we'll be heading out. Please continue enjoying the party. James looked like he wanted to say something, but I took Emma's hand and we left the venue. I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing? Because you said you wanted to enjoy the party, but it turned into a scene and you couldn't have any fun. Oh, that? Don't worry about it. I expected something like this. Really? Since I became popular, it happens everywhere I go. I'm used to it now. Since you got all dressed up, it would be a waste to go straight home. How about we grab dinner somewhere? That sounds great. Actually, I anticipated this and reserved a private room at a restaurant. Really? Is it the place I mentioned wanting to go to, recently? Yes, it is. You seemed very eager to go. Yay! You're the best husband ever. That night, we had dinner together and then went home. The next day at work, many people approached me with questions. Hey, John, are you really married to the actress Emma? How did you even meet an actress? I was bombarded with so many questions that I got fed up. Needing some alone time, I slipped into an unused meeting room. Suddenly, I was shoved from behind and fell to the floor. Ouch! I turned around quickly to see James standing there. Are you mocking me? No, I'm not. Why didn't you tell me you had a wife like that? There was no need to mention it. Besides, I thought it might interfere with work. You made a fool out of me. No, I didn't. My girlfriend is a magazine model. I'd been bragging about it to everyone. But then you show up with a famous actress, and it's all ruined. That's your problem. Girlfriends and wives aren't meant to be shown off. Shut up. As James yelled, the door slowly opened behind him. Standing there, with a frown on his face, was President Brown. James noticed my gaze behind him and turned around nervously. President Brown, meeting James's eyes, said in a low voice, James, I need to have a word with you. Is now a good time? He asked in a low voice. What about? I've received complaints about your sales tactics from several company heads. Complaints? Was there some kind of trouble? James, I heard you were pitching like a host to Ms. Johnson. You were saying things like, we can go on a date if you place an order, and, if you want more visits, contribute to the sales. You mentioned a lot of things. Well, that's... In the end, you even demanded money, saying you needed it to go to a hospital. Even President Johnson found it suspicious and reported it to me. Do expect some consequences. You can go home for today. Also, I'd like to have a word with you too, John. Is that all right? I was startled by the sudden mention of my name. Yes, of course. I replied, bracing myself, fearing I might be in trouble too. James looked at me with a smug expression as if expecting me to get in trouble as well. John, your sales performance is decent, but your clients speak very highly of you. They appreciate your attentive and sincere approach. Therefore, I want to give you more responsibilities. How do you feel about that? Could you clarify what you mean? I'm offering you a position as department manager. You're still young, so I understand if you have concerns, but I'll be here to support you. Really? I'm honored and will do my best. And so, I was promoted to manager. Meanwhile, James's previous actions caught up with him, causing him to lose all his clients. Starting from scratch, it seems no one would sign a contract using James's method, and now his sales performance is at the bottom. He's even below the new recruits. James used to pride himself on his status, but after several months in this condition, it must be mentally exhausting. He has become so haggard that even the female employees have stopped talking to him. As for me, President Brown took a liking to me and often invited me out for private dinners. Gradually, I've gained more confidence and have started to act more cheerfully around others. I'm still happily living with Emma, who I believe is too good for me. I owe it all to Emma for getting me this far. And now, our family is about to grow. Just recently, we found out there's a tiny heartbeat inside Emma's belly. We don't know the gender yet, but we're excited to cherish this new life. Hey, are you okay? Ambulance. I helped a woman who collapsed on her way home from work. She had been walking unsteadily in front of me for a while, and I thought she looked like she might be in danger. I'm glad I was able to help before she fell to the ground. She said, "Thank you so much. I'd like to properly thank you another day," and left her business card. Later, she invited me to dinner as a thank you, and we chatted for a while. Sometimes, she would look at me wistfully and then look away, making my heart race. Maybe it's because she's around my parents' age or because of her kind and dignified manner, but I felt a bit nostalgic. Thank you again for helping me the other day. This might be sudden, but do you have a girlfriend? If you don't mind, I'd like to introduce you to someone suitable. I was a bit surprised by her sudden offer, but seeing her hopeful gaze, I agreed. Well, I guess I could just meet her. She brightened up and said, "Then, let's meet here again next week," and resumed our meal. Just as she said, the match she proposed was almost too good for me, and I hit it off with the person, feeling truly glad I came. However, this match ended up turning my life upside down. My name is John, and I'm just an ordinary sales representative. Since graduating and starting my job, I've been leading a busy life. I work at a pharmaceutical company, and the development department is always researching new drugs, so there's a lot to learn. As a sales representative for a pharmaceutical company, I'm known as an MR. Since we handle drugs that can also be harmful, I always update my product knowledge and aim to sell correctly. Thinking this way, studying during breaks and after work is essential. I joined a pharmaceutical company because I wanted to help save people's lives. Therefore, I hated doing a half-hearted job and studied thoroughly, researching anything I didn't know right away. I vowed never to sell with incomplete knowledge. Thanks to this, my performance has been great, and I've earned the trust of many doctors who say, "John is sincere and reliable." Being praised like this, I try to stay grounded, reminding myself not to slack off now. The reason I aimed to become an MR was because of my father. I was raised by my father in a single-parent household. He worked and did all the housework perfectly, and I want to be a father like him if I ever get married. However, my father had a chronic illness. It was a mild condition controlled by daily medication, but he always took his medicine secretly, not letting me notice, and loved me dearly. Seeing him like that made me want to work in healthcare. But being from a single-parent household, I didn't have the funds to attend a prestigious medical or pharmaceutical school. Nor was I smart enough to aim for a private university's medical or pharmaceutical department. So, I aimed for the science department at a private university, joined a pharmaceutical-related seminar, and set my sights on a pharmaceutical company. Even if I couldn't be in research, I wanted to deliver ever-evolving medicines to those in need as a sales representative. If possible, I hoped to relay feedback from users to the research department, contributing to the development of more effective and easier-to-take medications. My boss in the sales department is very strict. "John, are you ready for the sales visit?" She is Sarah, a woman who recently transferred from the research department and taught me everything about drugs. "Oh, you're in the sales department, but you study diligently." This was our first conversation on her first day after transferring. I still remember it. And the conversation continued. "John, keep up that studying. It will be your weapon. What is our job as MRs? To sell drugs? That's half correct, half incorrect. I listened intently to her words. Our job is to deliver the right drugs, with the right knowledge, to the right place. Drugs can become poisons depending on their use. We indirectly hold people's lives in our hands. That's why we must thoroughly master our knowledge and convince the doctors. This was her teaching, which aligned with my own thoughts. The difference was her overwhelming knowledge. She had a background in pharmacy and worked in the development department, sharing her expertise with me. John, did you go through the materials from the other day? Yes, but I have a question about the drug interactions. During our commute in Sarah's car, we reviewed materials and held oral study sessions. This time was very precious and appreciated. Throughout the company, Sarah was known to be quite strict. I often got teased with comments like, "John, how do you manage under such a tough woman? Are you a masochist?" Well, she is strict, but her guidance is spot on. I know I'll be fine if I follow her lead, so I'm sticking with her. She may be tough, and people even call her team the military, but she never says anything unreasonable, always listens until the end, and never abandons her guidance. Although I've never seen her smile, she properly evaluates effort and sets higher goals. There's no doubt that I am where I am today because of Sarah. One day, I was walking home, completely exhausted. I had many hospital visits that day, moving from place to place. By the time I was heading home, it was already past midnight. Studying after getting home today seems impossible. With that in mind, I concentrated more than usual on my materials during the commute and ended up missing my stop. I decided to walk the extra station home, thinking it might be a nice change. The unfamiliar path felt refreshing. I didn't know this street existed. Maybe I'll leave home early, have breakfast at that cafe, and study there, I thought, walking home while daydreaming. Suddenly, I saw a woman walking unsteadily in front of me, looking like she might collapse any second. I thought she looked in danger, but I hesitated to approach her, thinking it might scare her. However, her unsteady steps suddenly halted, and she disappeared from view. Oh no! I threw my bag aside and rushed to her, catching her as she fell. "Hey, are you okay?" "Ambulance!" I lightly tapped her shoulder, but she seemed unconscious. I laid her down at the side of the road, using my jacket as a pillow. I took out my phone from the bag I had thrown aside and called an ambulance. Soon, the ambulance arrived, and as I was interacting with the paramedics, the woman suddenly sat up. "Where am I?" she asked, looking around. "Oh, you're awake. You collapsed while walking, so I called an ambulance." "You seemed unconscious. How long was I unconscious?" I briefly explained what had happened. "I see. Thank you so much. The paramedics are here now, so I'll be fine." "I'd like to thank you properly, but I don't have anything with me right now. Could I have your business card?" "Oh, no, please don't worry about it. It was nothing." Helping someone is just natural, so her gratitude felt a bit embarrassing. I was about to leave quickly, thinking it was enough that she was okay. "Please, let me thank you," she insisted. "If you insist." "Please don't worry about it," I said, handing her my business card before leaving. Even though I felt I hadn't done much, I thought about how dangerous it could have been for her to collapse alone at night and felt a bit better about myself. That night, I slept very soundly, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "John, can I talk to you for a minute?" The next morning, as I arrived at work, Mr. Smith called me into his office with a serious expression. I wondered if I had done something wrong. Pondering over this, I headed to his office. "John, you've done something incredible." As soon as I entered, Mr. Smith spoke without looking at me. What could I have done? My mind raced until he continued, "Have a seat. It's better than standing and talking." I sat in the plush chair, my heart pounding. "You did a great job, really. A major achievement." At his words, I looked up. In front of me sat Mr. Smith, beaming. I felt relieved. "You helped a woman on your way home yesterday, right?" "That woman is Dr. Thompson, the director of Central Hospital." Mr. Smith, clearly excited about the prospect of securing a major contract, continued. "We received a call from her this morning. She said she was rescued by you and is willing to reconsider the new drug proposal we previously pitched. Apparently, the woman I helped was a significant figure. She is renowned in the medical field, consulted by major figures both domestically and internationally. This new drug pitch is a big one. I want you to handle it. It's a major opportunity, so you can take Sarah with you if necessary. Thanks to you, the company's future looks bright. Even if it's not an immediate contract, build a good relationship. Mr. Smith seemed very pleased. Back in my department, I reported this to Sarah. I see. You can handle this contract alone, John. You'll be fine, she said before leaving. So far, for such major contracts, even if I was the lead, she would always accompany me. Could this mean I've finally been acknowledged? Pondering this, I started my work for the day. Thank you so much for the other day. Are you free next Friday? I'd like to take you out for a meal as a thank you. There's something I'd like to discuss. That same day, I received a call from the female doctor I had helped the previous night. She's really conscientious. Honestly, being thanked so formally felt a bit embarrassing, and I wasn't too enthusiastic, but after Mr. Smith's comments this morning, I couldn't refuse. So, I agreed to meet her for dinner on Friday, hoping to also secure a business opportunity. Great. I'll pick you up on Friday then, she said and hung up the phone. For the dinner, I thought my usual suit wouldn't be appropriate, so I prepared some casual formal clothes. John, got a date tonight? I was teased, but it was better than embarrassing my host. As I left the office, there was a luxury car waiting in front of me. I'd been waiting for you, let's go. Are you okay with seafood? I was thinking of taking you to my favorite French restaurant. She smiled warmly, dressed in what looked like very expensive clothes. I didn't properly introduce myself the other day. Thank you again for your help. My name is Emily Thompson. She handed me her business card as she thanked me again. The card read Emily Thompson, Director of Central Hospital, just as Mr. Smith had mentioned. I got into the car, guided by her, feeling nervous sitting in the back seat with a driver up front. We arrived at an incredibly luxurious French restaurant, and dish after dish was served. Honestly, I was too nervous to fully enjoy the food, but seeing her smile at me from across the table, occasionally looking wistful, made my heart race. Trying to avoid any awkwardness or mistakes, I chatted with her. By the end of the course, I was finally relaxed enough to enjoy the flavors. John, do you have a girlfriend? Dr. Thompson suddenly asked, looking directly at me. No, I don't. Oh, sorry to ask so abruptly. So, you don't have a girlfriend, she said, touching her chin thoughtfully. If you don't mind, I'd like to introduce you to one of my protégés. It should be a good match, even if it doesn't lead to a relationship. Seeing her earnest gaze, I nodded impulsively. On the appointed day, I returned to the same French restaurant. I thought, she must really like this place. I was also excited to try the dishes I had been too nervous to enjoy before. When I mentioned Dr. Thompson's name, I was led to a private room in the back. Oh, I've been expecting you. You're John, right? The gentle voice came from a lovely woman who smiled at me. Nice to meet you. Dr. Thompson set this up for us. I'm Grace. It's a pleasure to meet you. Her graceful gesture of tucking her long hair behind her ear made my heart skip a beat. Nice to meet you, I'm John. Thank you for meeting with me. Despite being our first meeting, the dinner went smoothly. I work under Dr. Thompson as a doctor. As I heard, you're sincere and impressive, she said, smiling softly, making me feel flustered. No, I'm just an ordinary sales representative. It's an honor to meet someone as wonderful as you. I was a bit apprehensive about the introduction, but I'm glad I came. I blurted out a response and immediately hung my head, wondering if I seemed too self-deprecating. She laughed softly, covering her mouth. That's perfectly fine. I've heard about your dedicated work. There's no shame in your profession. Next time, why don't you come and sell your medications to our hospital? I nodded eagerly. Dinner with her was genuinely enjoyable, and I wished the time could last forever. Dr. Thompson has a son she's estranged from, Since you helped her, she's been talking about you and her family more often," Grace said, smiling, but her words gave me pause. "She should visit him," I murmured. Grace gave me a troubled look. "Yes, I think so too. If they can meet, they should. But Dr. Thompson isn't the type to give up without a reason. So there must be something going on." "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to speak ill of someone you respect so much, Grace." "Don't worry about it. Anyone would think the same if they didn't know the full story." After that, we continued chatting about various things and ended up agreeing to meet again. Before I knew it, I had fallen for Grace, not just for her charming looks but also for her bright and kind personality. After several dates, we arranged to meet again. But this time, it wasn't Grace waiting for me at the meeting spot, it was Dr. Thompson. "Ha! Dr. Thompson, what brings you here?" Looking apologetic, she said, "I'm sorry, but I really needed to talk to you." Grace agreed to give me some of her time. "She'll be here in about 30 minutes, so could we talk for a bit?" She then led me into a nearby cafe. After our iced coffees arrived, Dr. Thompson began to speak. My old surname was Taylor. I reverted to my maiden name, Thompson, after the divorce. "Do you know how Michael Taylor is doing?" She looked at me with a slightly sad expression. "Michael Taylor. Could it be that the estranged son Grace mentioned is?" Dr. Thompson nodded slightly, leaving me bewildered. "Why didn't you come to see us all this time? Why did you leave my father?" I had so many questions. Let me explain in order. It was my fault. I neglected you all because I was too absorbed in my work. I heard you chose to work for a pharmaceutical company after seeing Michael's chronic illness up close. It's a noble dream to save lives. But family comes first. Cherish them." She took a sip of her coffee. "I worked hard to save others, but in doing so, I neglected my family." Michael couldn't bear it anymore and handed me divorce petition, saying, "How can a mother who doesn't even care about her own child's growth save anyone?" That was a wake-up call for me. I realized that while I had saved many lives, I had missed what was most important. She stirred her straw, looking very sad. Maybe the wistful look she had during our first meal together was because she was remembering the divorce. "Why didn't you come to see me? You could have at least done that." I was about to say that much should have been possible, considering she talked about her son to Grace, but I stopped myself. Dr. Thompson shook her head weakly, filled with regret and sorrow. "Michael didn't forgive me. So, at first, I thought I'd keep my identity as your mother a secret." Seeing her weak smile, I didn't know what to say. "I'm glad we met, Mom." Hearing me call her Mom, she shed a single tear. "And I think Dad will forgive you too, if you talk it out. You've introduced me to a wonderful person, and I'm satisfied seeing your face again. Let's go to that French restaurant again." I was so nervous the first time that I couldn't taste the food. Turning away in embarrassment, my mom laughed. "Oh my, you say the same thing as Michael. All right, we'll go again. And it seems you really like Grace." It was a good match, wasn't it? I looked straight at her and nodded. "It's a promise, this time with Dad. Grace is amazing. She's such a pure-hearted woman. I want to protect her with everything I have." "John." I heard Grace's voice behind me. She must have arrived and heard everything I said about her. Feeling suddenly embarrassed and blushing, Dr. Thompson laughed. "Take care of my child. I've raised her like my own daughter." Grace, blushing, looked down. Dr. Thompson stood up and said as she was leaving, "Oh, and your boss, Sarah. She's quite strict, isn't she?" "She's my best friend." I looked up in surprise. "What? Sarah?" I must have looked very shocked, and my mom laughed softly. "Since I couldn't see you, Sarah was keeping an eye on you. I've always heard about your hard work from her. I'm proud of you." I should thank Sarah for switching from research to sales at my request. As I stood there in a daze, Grace's voice brought me back to reality. "I feel like I've just heard something incredible." Smiling, she called over a waiter and ordered tea and a refill of my coffee. "So, where should we go today?" Her innocent excitement about our date made my heart warm, and I decided to address everything later. I focused on her for now. So, you heard everything, huh? Later, during a break between sales calls, I told Sarah about the conversation I had with my mother. So, I guess my job here is done. John, you've really done well. Do you remember what I told you when we first met? I nodded. An MR indirectly holds people's lives in their hands. I fully agreed with that sentiment and had joined the pharmaceutical company with the hope of saving lives indirectly. You really take after Emily. Why didn't you become a doctor? Sarah laughed heartily, and I was taken aback. It was the first time I had seen her smile. So, you do smile, Sarah. Of course, I'm human. Once Emily asked me to look after you, I made it my mission to get you ready for the world. She said, puffing on a cigarette. I'm transferring back to the research department in the next rotation. You're more than capable of handling things on your own now. If you need anything, just drop by the research department. Thank you for everything. She then shared some memories with me. Emily is pretty awkward, you know. She couldn't balance work and family, so Michael left her. My parents and Sarah were college classmates. Michael is stubborn too. He knew Emily couldn't balance everything. Even now, both Emily and Michael keep in touch with me. They both care about you a lot. Apparently, my father had also been checking up on me through Sarah. When I teasingly told Michael that you work as well as Emily does, he made a complicated face. He still loves Emily. He can't forgive himself for not forgiving her for neglecting the family. She extinguished her cigarette, waved, and walked away. A few years later, my parents had remarried. After my talk with Sarah, I went straight home and told my father about my mother. Dad, let's go to Mom's favorite French restaurant together. She's been thinking about you. And she cares so much about me that she even got her best friend to be my direct supervisor. I persuaded my father, and we finally arranged a meal for the three of us. At first, my parents were awkward with each other, but eventually, their arguments turned into reconciliation. Since then, we started having family meals once a month, and my parents even began going out together more frequently. John, I'm thinking of getting remarried. One day, my father suddenly announced, causing me to spit out my tea. What's this about? With whom? Who else? With Emily. They had rekindled their feelings for each other after several dates. Decades later, they got remarried. And soon, I too would become a father. Grace, it's almost time. How are you feeling? You're such a worrier. Do I look unwell? Grace and I had gotten married, and we were expecting our first child. Since Grace, being a doctor, couldn't take much time off, I planned to take paternity leave. My career had been going well, especially after securing a major contract with Central Hospital through my mother's connections. I had more flexibility with my schedule and spent most of my time training new recruits. With the baby on the way, I was fully prepared to support Grace. While I was at my parents' house learning about parenting from my father, he told me about their remarriage. And I couldn't take in any more information. Oh, you're doing great. You're going to be a wonderful dad, John. Really? Maybe he takes after Michael? Grace will be relieved. While I was training to be a father, my mother and Sarah walked in, Sarah holding her grandchild. Since my parents had reconciled, we had become close with Sarah's family as well. Today, she brought her grandchild over. Grace will be here soon. Could you help prepare dinner? My mother said, placing a load of groceries in the kitchen. My father and I exchanged glances. My mother couldn't cook at all. Seeing the groceries she bought, we both sighed. Hey, how many people are these groceries for? For us, Sarah's family, Grace, about 10 people? My father sighed at my mother's innocent smile. She's so cute, but really, she can only work, nothing else. Following my father's lead, I started prepping the ingredients as he instructed. As we busily worked on the various dishes, the doorbell rang. Grace, welcome home. Just sit down and relax. Oh, let me help with something. It's fine, it's fine. The men in this house are very capable. Pregnant women should sit and rest. My mother, already sipping on a drink, encouraged her to sit down. "Oh, my family will be here soon too," Sarah said, leisurely playing with her grandchild. Knowing the real party was about to start, my father and I refocused on finishing the meal preparations. When the doorbell rang again, Grace answered it. The party began. Seeing everyone's smiles made me grin from ear to ear. "John, you did great. Let's make our home just as joyful," Grace said, handing me a cold beer with a smile. Looking at her, I made a promise. We will definitely have a happy home. I'm Nick. I'm a young employee at Mitchell Motors, a major car manufacturer. I've loved cars since I was a kid, and after working hard to gain knowledge, I joined this company. My efforts were recognized. And now I'm part of the development team, leading a busy but fulfilling life. Today, after finishing a long meeting for a new product project and about to leave my seat, I was stopped by my manager, Tom. "Nick, do you have a moment?" "Yes, Tom. How can I help you?" "Don't be so tense. It's not a big deal. You know the part we're using for the new product in the project you're on? The one we discussed in the meeting." "Oh, that part. Is there something about it?" "Yeah, as mentioned in the meeting, we're planning to outsource it. I want you to take charge of selecting the contractor." "What? Me?" I couldn't help but raise my voice in surprise. Seeing me flustered, Tom smiled gently and patted my shoulder. "Life is all about experiences. But isn't it too soon for me to handle such an important task? This outsourcing deal is worth $100 million. Can I really manage it?" "Don't worry. Here's a list of candidates. All of these companies are reliable and have excellent technology. Other employees will help with the negotiations and contract procedures. I want you to visit these companies and develop your eye for quality." "Develop my eye?" "Yes, it's a big deal, but it's a necessary experience for your future. I trust you, so go with confidence. If you have any problems or doubts, you can always consult me." Encouraged by his smile, I left the meeting room, still feeling nervous. The list he gave me included companies we have had long relationships with, all trustworthy and technologically capable. If I choose from this list, there's little chance of failure. From that day, I spent a few days contacting the companies on the list and visiting them. Today, I'm visiting the last company on the list. "Nick, we've been expecting you. Please come this way." A young female employee politely guided me to the reception room. Probably in her mid-20s. She respectfully handed me her business card. "Nice to meet you. My name is Anna." I looked at the card from her. I thought she might be in sales, but she was actually in the technical department, which surprised me a little. "Did you think it was unusual for a woman from the technical department to come out?" I must have shown it on my face. She hit the nail on the head. I wondered if it was rude to be surprised by her gender. But it would be strange to lie and try to cover it up. I decided to be honest and nodded. Yes, I thought it was a bit unusual to see a woman in a technical role in this industry. "I'm sorry if that was rude." "It's fine. I hear that often and don't mind." "Nick, can we discuss the details of the project?" "Of course. Please take a look at this material." I handed her the documents and briefly explained the project. As expected of the technical department. Her understanding was quick, her questions were specific and precise, and the conversation flowed smoothly, leaving me with a clear mind. After the meeting, I left her company feeling much better. Of all the companies I've visited, this one seemed the most promising. I thought about consulting Tom about it while glancing at my watch. It was just before noon. It was lunchtime. I decided to gather my thoughts over lunch before heading back to the office. I walked a bit and spotted a small diner. I walked in and found that more than half of the seats were already occupied. I sat at a table for two, placed my bag in the storage area, and looked over the lunch menu. After some deliberation, I ordered the daily special. While casually sipping water and glancing around, I noticed that the diner had become completely full. A few people were waiting near the entrance, and the staff were asking customers if they could share tables. A waiter came to me with the same request, and having no reason to refuse, I agreed. Soon, the waiter brought my table mate, and our eyes met, causing me to gasp in surprise. "Oh! Oh!" We recognized each other and exclaimed in unison. It was Anna sitting across from me. Looking slightly embarrassed, Anna greeted me and took the seat in front of me. "What a coincidence," she said. "Yes, it's lunchtime, so I thought I'd have a meal before heading back to the office." "That's right. This place is great, affordable, generous portions, and delicious. I highly recommend it." Anna, clearly a regular, ordered without even looking at the menu, then placed her phone on the table. Her phone had a faded blue minivan keychain, which caught my eye. "Isn't that our company's car?" "Yes. I've loved this model since I was a kid. My dad bought me this keychain when I was in elementary school, and it's very special to me. So I still keep it." Her eyes sparkled as she spoke, revealing her genuine love for cars. "My late father worked in your company's development department. He was involved in developing this car and often talked to me about it, which sparked my interest in the automotive industry." "That's interesting. My dad also worked on that minivan project, so they might have known each other." "Wow, that would be quite a connection. Both you and your dad work for the same company." "That's amazing." "Well, maybe. But you're amazing too. Honestly, isn't it tough being a woman in this industry's technical field?" "Yes, it can be challenging. People often say because you're a woman or even though you're a woman, and it gets tiring. But it makes me want to prove them wrong even more." She said this cheerfully. Her demeanor was admirable, and I found it impressive. Eventually, I decided to proceed with contracting Anna's company as our top choice. All the companies had great technology and reliable representatives, but her company stood out the most. Her genuine passion for cars made me feel that we could create something great together. As we moved towards finalizing the contract, I frequently visited her company to discuss specifications and conditions. Over these discussions, Anna and I became quite friendly. After our meetings, we often ended up at the same diner, chatting about various topics. These days, when everything seemed to be going smoothly, preparing for an internal meeting the next day, I stopped by the factory and noticed I was missing some documents related to the contract with Anna's company. Apparently, I had forgotten to collect them from her company. It was completely my fault. Feeling a bit guilty, I contacted Anna to set up an appointment. She kindly agreed, saying, "It might take a little while to prepare. So you might have to wait, but it's no problem." If I went back to headquarters first, it would be past her company's closing time. Feeling slightly rude but needing the documents, I headed to her company in my work clothes. Anna was still preparing the documents. A young female clerk, possibly a new employee, led me to the usual reception room. Just as I reached for the iced coffee she brought, a hand from the side snatched it away. "It's cold." Before I could react, someone splashed the coffee on me. I had no idea what was happening. Confused, I looked up to see a middle-aged man with a sneer, holding the empty cup. "That dirty work uniform might be a bit cleaner now. Be grateful." "What? Whether you're a subcontractor or a lowly worker, who gave you permission to enter the reception room? The representative from Mitchell Motors will be here soon, so get out. Get out now, you slow-witted loser." The middle-aged man twisted his face into a crooked smile, grabbed my arm, and forcibly yanked me to my feet, causing me to wince in pain. Just then, the reception room door burst open. "Brandon! What are you doing?" "Huh? I'm just teaching this lowly worker a lesson." "Get lost, you useless woman." "Brandon, what are you saying? This person is the representative from Mitchell Motors. Let go of him immediately." "There's no way. A guy in a dirty work uniform with a face like a lowly worker can't possibly be an employee of a prestigious company." "Anna, have you lost your mind?" The manager, Brandon, roughly let go of my arm. Then he mockingly tapped his temple with his index finger, as if to imply she was crazy. I was stunned, but seeing him ridicule Anna made me furious. "The one who's crazy is you. Can't you read the company name on this uniform?" I pointed to the chest area of my work uniform, stained with coffee. There, of course, was the name Mitchell Motors. The color drained from Brandon's previously arrogant face. Granted, it was urgent, so I came in this outfit, which was my mistake, but throwing coffee on someone is absurd. Maybe you're the one who's lost it. I mimicked his earlier gesture, tapping my temple with my finger. I knew stooping to his level wasn't ideal, but I couldn't help responding. Brandon's face turned beet red with anger. Ooh. He looked like he wanted to yell at me, but barely held back. I looked at him with cold disdain. You told me to leave, so I'm going. Goodbye. I left the reception room and headed towards the entrance. Unfortunately, the sky was overcast and it was raining heavily. I didn't have an umbrella, and I didn't want to take the bus in my coffee-stained clothes. Just as I was about to call a taxi, Nick! I heard someone calling my name. I turned to see Anna running towards me with an umbrella and some documents. She reached me, out of breath, and handed me the umbrella, looking worried. Nick, are you okay? Did you get burned? No, thankfully it was iced coffee. Did you come all the way here just to bring me an umbrella? Well, that, and I wanted to give you these documents. But I guess you don't need them anymore, after what Brandon did. Thank you. But about the contract, it's complicated. It's a big deal between companies, and I can't make a decision here and now. Don't hold back, Nick. If the contract is cancelled, it serves him right. She laughed as if a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. I was surprised by this unexpected reaction from Anna, whom I always thought of as serious. The rain is heavy, and you're soaked. If you don't mind, I can give you a ride. No, that's too much. And you're still on the clock, right? Don't worry about it. I plan to submit my resignation tomorrow. What? Resignation? You're quitting? I've had enough of Brandon. Today was the final straw. If you don't mind, can I vent to you on the way? Sure. Feeling somewhat overwhelmed by her determination, I nodded. We walked to the parking lot, and she unlocked a white car. Please, get in. Thank you. I hesitantly got into her car. Anna, sitting in the driver's seat, asked, Is it okay if I take you to your company, Nick? I nodded in response. She started the engine, set the destination on the GPS, and began driving. The guy who threw the coffee, Brandon, is a power-harassing, incompetent nepotism hire. Nepotism? Yeah, he's the nephew of our company's president, Mr. Thompson. He always flaunts that connection, bosses everyone around, and yells at subordinates without reason, yet he's terrible at his job. Wow, I can't believe there's still someone like that. Does the upper management know and ignore it? I'm not sure. Our company is pretty old-fashioned and doesn't take compliance seriously. There's no internal reporting system for employees to directly talk to upper management without going through their bosses. Most managers just try to stay on Brandon's good side, so nothing gets reported. He's basically unchecked. She let out a heavy sigh. There was a veteran employee who fought to report his misdeeds to upper management. But Brandon crushed him by deliberately causing a loss and blaming it on the veteran, forcing him to resign. What? He caused a loss just to get rid of an employee he didn't like? Yes, it's unbelievable. But he doesn't care about the company as long as he can harass those he dislikes. It's truly unbelievable that the company lets this go on. It really is. Today, he barged in trying to steal the credit for the contract with your company, without knowing anything about the project. Despite the fact that the whole company has been talking about this contract, he didn't know about it until today. I've been submitting reports and discussing it in meetings, but he must have ignored the reports and zoned out during the meetings. He has no interest in the job. And then he throws coffee on you. That's quite something. The power of assumptions, right? He probably thought the representative of a big company like yours must be an elite in a sharp suit. So he couldn't believe that someone in work clothes could be the representative, even though the company's name was on the uniform. That's Brandon for you. Many employees have left because of him. Whether they were forced out like the veteran or left because they couldn't stand him anymore. Those who stayed are either trying to curry favor with him or just avoiding trouble. I love this industry, so I endured his tyranny. But I've reached my limit. I see. I didn't realize there was such a problematic person in your company. I was tasked with assessing people and companies. But I still have a lot to learn. Don't be too hard on yourself. It's impossible to know the internal dynamics from an outsider's perspective. Only a detective or an officer might be able to figure that out. She sighed deeply, probably one of many sighs she's let out. She's likely been struggling with this for a long time. I wondered if there was something I could do for her. There is one thing. Though it might bring me down to Brandon's level, which I wanted to avoid if possible. But desperate times call for desperate measures. After a moment of thought, I decided to speak up. If you had a way to get back at Brandon, would you take it? Anna looked at me with a blank expression. She might have wondered why I suddenly brought this up. After a brief pause, she nodded. If there's a way, I'd like to see him face consequences. Someone like him ruins the environment for making good products. I don't want to waste the efforts of my colleagues and predecessors who fought against him. But Nick, what's your plan? It's simple. We'll fight fire with fire. It's a bit childish, but since he started it, I think it's justified. She looked puzzled, but I smiled reassuringly. After she dropped me off at my company, I headed straight to a certain room. As I walked, the employees I passed seemed surprised by my appearance and the odd air about me. But I knocked on the door of a specific room without paying any attention to their reactions. A few days later, under the pretext of a business meeting, I called Anna to our company's conference room. As I led the way and knocked on the conference room door, I could sense Anna gasp behind me. Mr. Mitchell? Inside the meeting room was Mr. Mitchell, our company president. Anna, being a car enthusiast, must have recognized him. She stood there, stunned. You're Anna, right? My son has told me a lot about you. Your son? She seemed confused, trying to remember if she knew anyone with the last name Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell looked at me and smiled. The man standing next to you. Wait, really? She looked at me. And I nodded. Really? Yes, really. I heard your father worked at the same company, but I had no idea you were his son. But your last name is different. She looked puzzled, glancing between Mr. Mitchell and me. I use my mother's maiden name, Anderson, at work to keep my position as the president's son under wraps. My real name is Nick Mitchell. Only a few executives and some employees know about it. I was born into a privileged family, with parents who, despite their busy schedules, showered me with love. I love cars and have always admired my father, who works hard for the company. I worked hard to follow in his footsteps. However, being in a perfect environment often led to unwarranted jealousy and envy. When I did well on exams or entrance tests, people would accuse me of using my parents' influence. The same went for sports and the arts. Even compliments like "your parents are so accomplished, so of course, you'd turn out great too" didn't bring me any joy. Friends would jokingly call me rich boy, but it stung. In high school, my first girlfriend used me to brag, saying, "My boyfriend is the president's son." Being the president's only son was a huge burden for me, and that's why I wanted to hide my identity and prove myself on my own while I was young. This guy here is stubborn. He insisted on not using any connections, took our company's entrance exam on his own, and joined the development team by his merit. Though I did ask Tom from the development department to give him tasks outside his main duties to broaden his experience. Sending him to handle the contract with your company was part of that. I told him to develop his ability to evaluate other companies and people. I never expected him to come back with coffee spilled on him. That was truly unacceptable behavior from our employee. I deeply apologize. It's not you who need to apologize. It needs to come from Brandon himself. Yes, you're right. Anna nodded with a conflicted expression, likely thinking that Brandon would never apologize. We're thinking of giving him a bit of a scare. A scare? Yes. If he shows remorse and apologizes, that would be ideal. But from what I've heard, he doesn't seem the type. So we'll go directly to the main person, President, Mr. Thompson. My son tells me that many talented employees have left because of Brandon's tyranny. Your company is reputable and skilled, and we'd hate to lose that. To help your company improve, we'll use the contract as leverage and tell them. We can't trust a company that ignores compliance issues. He paused and smiled kindly. A look I recognized from home, not from his role as the president. Also, Anna, your father was a valued employee of mine. He often talked about you. I can't stand by while his precious daughter is treated this way. Let me help. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. I appreciate your support. The meeting was set for a week later, in the same reception room at Anna's company, after business hours. Seeing Brandon's dismayed face upon seeing me and the confused look on Mr. Thompson's face was somewhat amusing. Anna, attending under the pretense of being the contract manager, looked tense. Hello, Brandon. Good to see you again so soon. Hello, Brandon. My son mentioned you took care of him recently. We both turned to Brandon and greeted him with cheerful smiles. He looked slightly puzzled to be greeted by both of us. My son, you say? I don't quite follow. Yes, it's only been a few days. My son, who rudely showed up in your reception room in his work clothes, received your attention. You even went out of your way to pour coffee on him to clean up his dirty uniform. At his words, Brandon finally realized who I was. His confused face turned bright red, and he glared at me with a hostile expression. His son? You? What's with that attitude towards the president and his son? What did you do to him the other day? I have no idea. I was there, Anna interjected firmly. She, who had been silent until then, spoke up in a firm voice. Brandon glared at her as if to say, don't say anything unnecessary, but Anna, resolute in her decision to resign if necessary, didn't care. Nick was waiting in the reception room while I prepared documents. Brandon barged in, yelling, your dirty work uniform looks a bit cleaner now. Be grateful. When I arrived, Nick was drenched in coffee, and Brandon was shouting at him. Is this true? It's a misunderstanding. No, she's right. He grabbed my arm and tried to throw me out, saying this wasn't a place for a subcontractor or lowly worker like me. Your company certainly has impressive employee training, I said, cutting off Brandon's attempt at making an excuse and forcing him into silence. Mr. Thompson turned pale. What have you done? Apologize now. I didn't realize he was a client. That's no excuse. Mr. Thompson forced him to apologize. It seemed Mr. Thompson had some sense of propriety. I admired Brandon's audacity to still try to defy me in this situation. Seeing this as my cue, I spoke up. In regards to the coffee incident, an apology would suffice. The stain was cleaned, and it's not a reason to terminate the contract. However, Brandon, you mentioned you didn't realize I was a client, right? So what? That implies it would be acceptable to treat your own company's employees or subcontractors that way. Mr. Thompson, haven't you noticed an increase in resignations from Brandon's department lately? Given his behavior, it's easy to imagine what goes on under his leadership. Personally, I wouldn't want to work under someone like that. We've only heard brief accounts, so we're not making any assumptions. But I believe a good company is built by good employees. An employee who mistreats others is a cancer. In today's world, you never know where information might leak from. If it does, it could cause significant damage to the company. We've had a long relationship with your company and don't want to lose that. I strongly recommend conducting an internal investigation. You're right. This is very concerning. I had no idea. I will investigate internally, and if what you said is true, there will be severe consequences. What? You're going to believe an outsider over your own nephew? Listen, this isn't school. Acting like a bully at your age is disgraceful. The investigation will determine the truth, but until then, you're on house arrest. Mr. Thompson spoke with disappointment. Brandon's defense was correct. The words of an outsider alone wouldn't serve as proof. However, ironically, his own attitude was the most damning evidence. The investigation reached out not only to current employees but also to those who had resigned. The results, as expected, were quite revealing. 6 months passed. Anna and I had been busy with work and hadn't seen each other in a while, so we planned to meet for dinner today. Of course, the dinner spot was our usual diner. As I looked over the menu, which now featured some new items, I heard someone call my name, Nick, and I looked up. "Anna, it's been a while, you look great." "Really? Thanks. I'm enjoying my work a lot, thanks to you and your father." "I'm glad to hear that. We kept in touch via email and phone, but I was worried about you. By the way, what happened to Brandon?" We had grown even closer, frequently exchanging personal messages. We both still love cars and remain dedicated to our work, maintaining a relationship that feels like comrades in arms. Even after learning that I'm the son of a major company's president, she treats me the same. These days, I find my relationship with her to be very comforting. I haven't told you the whole story. Brandon was transferred to the factory. Initially, they considered firing him. But they decided it was safer to keep him where Mr. Thompson could keep an eye on him. Is it safe to keep him in the company? There's a foreman at the factory, an old friend of Mr. Thompson. If anything happens, Mr. Thompson will hear about it right away. Brandon can't bully anyone there. The foreman is strict and intimidating, and Brandon can't stand up to strong people. I see. That's one way to handle it. It's probably the best way to straighten him out. Exactly. Those who supported his misconduct were also punished. But things are improving. Everyone is motivated to make top quality products again. One day, I'll make something that will impress you, so be prepared. She smiled proudly, looking radiant and beautiful. Life is unpredictable. Anna, who once considered quitting, now shines with enthusiasm. And the man who caused so much trouble faced his consequences. Life can change for better or worse, depending on our decisions and actions. It's time for me to take a leap too. With a sense of determination, I took out a pair of movie tickets from my bag.